Hello and welcome back to Simple Times Studios, where I recount heroic tales of solo roleplay and short fiction for your enjoyment. For this adventure, we will be taking a break from everyday heroes to take another crack at what is generally regarded as one of the best, if not the best, science fiction role-playing games for solo play. Ironsworn, Starforged. Published in 2022 and written by Sean Tomkin, Starforged is a science fiction spin-off of Tomkin's solo fantasy RPG Ironsworn. Despite the difference in genre, the two games have a lot of similar themes and backstory elements. Both feature oath-sworn heroes fulfilling heroic vows in cruel worlds. This will be my second game with the system. I previously played a game of Starforged back in May of 2024 to get familiar with the RPG and see how flexible it was. Depending on my schedule and how well this episode goes, I might go back and record that 2024 adventure. But that's something for later. Like other solo role-playing games, Starforged starts by trying to get you to think about the setting as well as setting truths to modify the setting and make it more your own before discussing character creation. Viewers of my earlier videos may remember that term, and yes, this is where I picked it up from. And while it admittedly is a bit pretentious to say out loud, hence why I dropped it from my episode intros after 2 campaigns, it does help frame the particulars of your campaign setting. The default campaign setting for Starforged is a rogue star cluster called the Forge. Humanity fled here after calamity destroyed the Milky Way galaxy. Generally speaking, regardless of which setting truths you pick or roll, the Forge is a hard-scrabbled space western similar to The Mandalorian, Firefly, or The Belters from the Expanse universe. Living is hard, life is cheap, and violence is a quick and easy solution to most problems. It's honestly one of the few major quibbles I have with Starforged, but we'll get to that later. Setting truths let you customize the particular flavor of interplanetary misery your campaign possesses. Do you want horror elements like ghost ships and Lovecraftian monsters lurking in the void or not? That is a setting truth. How is healthcare distributed through the Forge? That is another setting truth. Each truth category has 3 options and a handful of adventure seeds to get your imagination working. Even the calamity that forced humanity to flee to the Forge is a modifiable setting truth with different options and adventure seeds. For our setting truth, we are taking the default Forge setting and completely tossing it aside. Instead, I will be using my Orion Commonwealth setting that I have been working on since 2018 and trying to adapt to various RPG systems. Mentioned previously in passing during my Grimmer Space campaign, the one with Robert Manus and the Cerberus, the Orion Commonwealth is a noble, bright-ish space opera setting of exploration and discovery inspired by the cartoons and toys of my childhood in the 90s. The titular Orion Commonwealth are a multi-species alliance of life forms originally created as living plushies for a long-vanished civilization. However, our focus in this adventure will be on the Sol Federation, the stellar nation of humanity. And if the Orion Commonwealth are all space plushies, then the humans of the Sol Federation are sci-fi action figures. Think G.I. Joe if they ever update those toys to include the U.S. Space Force, and you have the general idea. In addition to a standard interplanetary army and space navy, the Sol Federation has several orders of highly trained specialists, such as the Wreck Troopers. Formed as the Sol Federation was nearly broken by the material cost of its defense, Wreck Troopers are combat engineers and material recovery experts trained in exoskeleton operation, battlefield repair, and recovering every last scrap of usable material from wrecked vehicles, ships, and space stations. Our story this session will follow Lieutenant Jeremiah Watson, a good old boy from the old Earth state of Kentucky and the Wreck Troopers trooper, as he handles just another day in the corpse. With the setting created and a rough idea who we're playing, it's time to flesh out Jeremiah Watson further in character generation. Watson is a character I haven't done too much with before, so this will be a good opportunity to flesh out his backstory. He's a smart, two-fisted techie, so his primary attribute is wits. His secondary attributes are edge and iron, and his third-tier stats are heart and shadow. So he's smart, fairly dexterous and strong, but doesn't necessarily have the best people skills. Maybe he's terrible at reading them. And as much political guile as Ned Stark. Okay, maybe a little more political guile than Ned Stark. For the paths step, I will pick 2 path cards that define his character class, Armored and Gearhead. Later, when I get a free card that I can draw from any deck, I'll pick Salvager as a 3rd path card. We're going to skip over the ship creation as individual wreck troopers don't have their own ships, and this adventure will not leave the planet. Alright, I rolled on his... 1 second. Rolled on his background and his primary vow. For his background, I got running from a criminal past. Perhaps Watson was a troubled youth that joined the military to escape a life of crime, but the criminal life isn't done with him yet. For his primary vow, I rolled and ended up on the action theme tables. Basically roll twice. Once for a verb and once for a noun. I ended up with advance home. We're going to put that aside for now because I have no idea how to interpret that. Is he trying to return to his home on Earth once his enlistment is up? Is he trying to improve his home in Kentucky or a home-like location somewhere else? We'll figure that out later. Next, how do we play? Well, when we take an action where there's a chance of failure, we roll a 6-sided die and 2 10-sided dice. The D6 is our action die, and the 2 D10s are our challenge dice that determine how difficult the task is. We take the results from our D6, add our stat and any other modifiers that may apply, and try to beat at least one of the results on our D10s. 1 success is a weak hit, and we succeed, but with some sort of consequence. 2 successes are a strong hit, and we succeed with benefits or at least with no consequences. No successes is a failure, and there might be consequences depending on the action being taken. The RPG comes with a reference guide detailing most of the action moves players can take to resolve various challenges and describe potential outcomes of strong hits, weak hits, and failures. For the mission that will make up our game today, I previously rolled up an abandoned planetary colony on an ice world on the frontier. It has been heavily damaged and broadcasting a garbled signal since Watson's ship arrived, so his squad is sent down to the surface to investigate. For the mission's theme, I previously rolled Deflect Deception. Perhaps there's a complication that will occur as Watson and his squad explore the colony. Okay, edit from future me. I'm pretty sure I rolled on the wrong tables. Just as well, since I ended up ignoring those rolls and freestyled based on how the story played out and what I have previously written about the setting. Yay, having over 100 pages of lore, short stories, and previous solo play sessions. Okay, lastly, once we finish Watson's adventure, I'll give my thoughts about Starforge since I'll have 2 games behind me about both the dice system and the setting. Next are our rules and rubrics. Our rubric for this campaign will be Ironsworn Starforged, though I will keep notes of and make adjustments given the difference of the setting compared to the default Starforged assumptions. Our character for this solo game will be Lieutenant Jeremiah Watson, a junior officer of the Sol Federation's Wreck Troopers. He has 3 path cards of Armored, Gearhead, and Scavenger. Due to the larger-than-life heroics of the setting, we will be using a modified heroic stat block for character creation, meaning we'll be using a 4-3-3-2-2 array borrowed from the original Ironsworn instead of the usual 3-2-2-1-1 in the core Starforged book. Iron Vows, while they'll remain mechanically unchanged, swearing on iron is something that thematically doesn't make much sense in the setting. Some characters, particularly Soul Federation ones, may swear on their honor or the honor of an order they belong to, but no one swears on random hunks of iron in the setting. Lastly, post-scarcity. Both the major stellar powers have reached a point where basic essentials are easily available for all, and multiple characters have access to portable Star Trek-style replicators the size of lunchboxes and similar small items. Players will receive a considerable bonus on their resupply and repair rolls if they are in a settlement or a situation where the narrative supports it, and that's a ruling that will not come up in this adventure. Alright, with that out of the way, here we go. Lieutenant Jeremiah Watson sat in a dropship with the rest of his squad as the ship buckled from turbulence. Dropship pilots always hit the atmosphere a little too fast and too hard, but that was part of the job. He turned to address the others. All right, people. This research station has been broadcasting an automated distress call since we arrived in the system yesterday. Orbital scans and codes indicate this is or was an Orion research station, but according to the star map, no one should be out here. So we're going to get in, explore the place, and figure out what's going on. For the troopers! He briefed, ending with a shout. Alright, we're going to declare an iron vow of explore the research station and discover its fate. In the interest of time, this will be a troublesome vow. This basically means we have to hit 3 milestones before we can roll to complete the quest with a good chance of success. I'm going to roll heart plus heart for an 8 on the action die, and my challenge dice are a 2 and a 6. This is a strong hit, so I'm up to +4 momentum, and it's clear what our hero must do once he lands. Momentum is a bonus I can add on occasion when I need to my rolls. We will be using that later. The ship lands and Watson's squad mates disembarked and fanned out onto the frozen spaceport tarmac. The frozen, snow-covered tarmac clearly hadn't been cleared in weeks. Overhead, the sky darkened as the snow began to pick up in intensity. A blizzard was coming. They needed to get inside the colony, and soon. All right, Digit. Get the door security open before we become the Federation's most expensive snowmen. Digit, the squad's cyber warfare expert, walked forward and opened the door almost immediately. Doors already unlocked, sir, the armored code breaker replied with a hint of confusion in his voice as the door slid open. Watson was just as confused, but had no time to think about that as he ushered the rest of the squad inside. Out of the cold, he looked around at what was the other side of the bulkhead door. In the opening atrium, they found signs that someone had attempted to seal the doors against intruders as the metal shell of the colony creaked from some kind of pressure. Whether that was from the weight of the snow outside or something else, Watson couldn't tell. Looking around further, Watson saw a blood trail on the floor leading to a pair of defensive turrets that looked strangely cobbled together for Commonwealth construction. Almost like the turrets were thrown together as a last-ditch effort. The wreck trooper thought as he spotted what looked like a small mining laser he used for the turret guns. They hummed with electricity, but otherwise hadn't taken a shot at the wreck troopers yet. Jeremiah Watson wondered if they were proximity triggered or just damaged. Definitely something would have to take care of if they wanted to search deeper into the research colony. Scanner looked up from the pocket computer in his gloved hand. LT, I have life signs from somewhere deeper in the colony. One signal and it's faint, the squad's spotter reported. Lieutenant Watson was listening to all of this, his hand still close to the trigger of his plasma SMG, when he saw the turret's barrels start to swing in their direction. Okay, going to make the face the danger adventure move to dodge and hopefully disable the turrets that look like they're about to take a shot at Watson and the others. Going to roll plus edge, and I get a 5 on my action die. Challenge die are a 1 and a 9, so I get a weak hit. We face the danger, but not without difficulty. I'll have to make a suffer move. Endure harm for -1 health seems to make the most sense. He now has 4 health left. The wreck trooper barely had time to shout a warning before the turrets came to life and hit him with a weak laser beam. He and several others hit back with a burst of plasma bolts, turning the turrets into scrap. Watson grimaced as a small laser beam pierced his armor. Like he thought, it was a small industrial laser that had been converted into an automated weapon. That didn't make it hurt any less, though. Lowering his weapon ever so slightly, he motioned for the others to follow him deeper into the colony. Hopefully when they find that life sign, they can get some answers. The colony atrium led to one of the operations area of the colony, the main administration offices. Terminals and cubicles once ran colony functions, now silently collecting dust. A strange hissing sound appeared over the comms channel, causing Watson to reach for the side of his head to try and adjust his communicator. The power flickered ominously as the wreck troopers walked in and spread out. Watson wasn't sure if it was just a lack of poor maintenance in the area or the sign of something worse deeper in the colony. Still, if this was the main administration area, then perhaps someone had a log that would tell them what had happened here and what this place was even for. Okay, going to use the Secure an Advantage move to deal with that flickering power so they can search the computers with less of a problem. Watson is going to make a plus wits and take an additional +1 since he is a gearhead. And at a 6, he narrowly crushes the 3 and the 5 on his challenge dice. He gets a strong hit and gets both +2 momentum, taking us up to +6, and +1 on the gather information move coming up next. As the flickering power began to grate on his already frayed nerves, Watson decided the best solution to the problem was to take care of it himself. Prying off an access panel with his exoskeleton, he pulled out his tools and started inspecting the power conduits before making short work of the problem by rerouting power through an intact cable that was providing power to a broken food synthesizer. Okay, for his gather information move, that's automatically a plus wits roll, but I'm going to use his scavenger path card and the success of his previous roll to add an additional +2. And I still got a miss with a 7 against a 9 and a 10 on the challenge dice. That's a miss, and I'm going to say we lose momentum trying to figure out the colony's computer network. I can't see this as being more than a minor setback in terms of time, so we take -1 and go down to +5. At least we learn something, even though it's definitely not something we may have wanted to know. So I'm going to say we now have a 3 out of 10 on his milestone tracker. With the power stabilized, Watson turned to Digit and nodded. The computer specialist sat down in front of a nearby desk terminal and started typing. And typing. And typing, until finally the terminal finally responded with a warm chime and the original user's desktop background of a beach on some exotic alien planet that Watson didn't recognize. Finally! Didn't think the Orions were this much of a bunch of sticklers about cybersecurity. Digit grumbled and started searching through files. Especially when the data servers are this much of a disorganized mess, the codebreaker added. Several other screens were brought to life, including a wall-mounted one that allowed the rest of the squad to watch Digit's search through the colony's servers without having to crowd over his shoulder. Finally, after what felt like way too long, Digit found the colony administrator's latest log entry and put it on the wall display. "Oh, this ain't good," the armored battle hacker grumbled. "It sure ain't," Watson agreed as he quickly skimmed over the log. "Outlaw Research Colony. dabbling in all the things both the Commonwealth and the Federation thinks are too dangerous to play with, the wreck trooper sighed. So what is it this time? Violent robots? Self-replicating snack food? A sapient computer virus? Watson added. The rest of the squad turned and looked at him to check if he was joking. Watson was joking. Partially. An outlaw research colony could be involved in all manner of things, and some were a lot less of a threat to the squad than others. Others would kill them the moment they walked through the door. Okay. What kind of project is the colony involved in? Let's roll on the descriptor and focus oracle tables because I have no idea off the top of my head. I have no idea off the top of my head, or at least no good ones. Okay, I get ensnaring creature as a result. Well, at least that's a little more obvious than some of the results I've gotten. Is it possible to pull a black box backup of the computer servers from this location? I think it's more than a little unlikely that it would be that easy. And 45 says no. Guess they better investigate that life sign for now. Digit looked back at the computer and brought up all the documentation for the colony's main research project. A picture of a large tan blob appeared on the wall monitor, along with a summary of relevant information. Well, looks like you weren't joking about the snack food thing, sir. Looks like they were playing with some sort of jello jerky thingy. Ain't living food research universally banned because of all the stupid shit the Forerunners did before they vanished? Another squatty asked. Spark the rookie, if Watson remembered correctly. It is, which is why it's out here instead of somewhere closer to civilization. It doesn't explain what we saw in the atrium, do? Watson replied. Well, log also said the thing got loose and does have some kind of iron-based blood. That's red, right? Digit replied. His specialty was computers, not biology. And I already know what you're going to ask next, sir. I can't extract the server's black box from this location. Why do we even need that thing anyway? Spark asked again, once again asking for exposition out of turn. Because High Command is going to want to know what this thing is in case some idiot makes another one closer to people, Watson replied automatically and then motioned for the squad to move out and through a nearby door. They had already learned all they were going to learn from this location. Following behind him, the wreck troopers made their way deeper into the Commonwealth colony. The door led to a hallway that connected the atrium and the administrative offices to the living area and the colony's kitchen. There was an attempt at barricading the door into the rest of the colony's mess hall, but it was weak and clearly would not hold up against any real force. Jeremiah nearly jumped when he heard the sound of a metal pan clattering on the floor. Looking back, he saw a scanner froze as the other man watched the pan fall on the floor in horror. Everyone froze and listened as the sound of something large and slimy slid across the mess hall floor in the next room over. A second later, something large and blunt slammed into the barricaded cafeteria door. The door buckled. On reflex, the entire squad raised their weapons and aimed at the door. Looks like the escaped experiment was about to introduce itself. Alright, combat time. We're going to start with the enter the fray move. I envision the objective being the squad successfully destroys or drives off the creature. We're going to declare that it's a formidable foe, given it seemingly destroyed the colony, and adjust accordingly depending on how this goes. Iron makes the most plus iron makes the most sense for this scene. Okay, action die is a 9 and a challenge die are a 3 and a 7. I am in control and gain a +2 momentum for +7. Okay, we're going to strike at range, so that's plus edge. I get a 6 on my action die against a 1 and a 4 for my challenge die. So that's a 2 out of 10 on the combat tracker. The squad strikes again to keep up their momentum. I get a 5 on my action die against a double 7 challenge dice. a match, so that means something interesting happens. I can't burn momentum since that only puts my action score to a +7, which is still not enough to beat both dice. Endure harm makes the most sense, so Watson is down to 3 HP as he gets whacked. In the interest of time, I'm going to risk it and use the battle move next. This basically resolves the rest of the fight in one move, something I probably should have done with my first combat move. Okay, 4 on my action die, and a 5 and a 8 on my challenge die. Okay, now I am going to burn momentum. This gets me a weak hit, so I will win at a cost, and my momentum gets set to +2. I'm going to say that the group sacrificed resources, bringing us down to 4 supply out of 5 as they burnt through their ammunition, destroying the monster. Since they defeated the monster and turned it into a well-done meat blob, I'm going to bump their progression tracker for the vow to 6 out of 10. Just need to find any survivors and they can definitely go home. The moment the creature broke through the barricade, Watson squeezed the trigger on his plasma SMG and shouted for the others to start shooting. Light tan jelly turned a dark, earthy brown and stiffened as multiple REC troopers opened fire with plasma weaponry, and bursts of highly concentrated star stuff burnt and collided with the creature. So far, so good. The group still had the advantage even as the gelatinous creature forced its way into the kitchen through the obstructed door and started to flow through the broken door frame. Seeing that they still had control of the situation, Jeremiah Watson switched to fully automatic and shouted to pour it onto it. The change in heat caused the creature to slap Jeremiah squarely in the face with a cooked pseudopod that shot out of the creature's body with the force of a pneumatic hammer. Blood pouring out of his broken nose, the rest of the battle passed in a blur of plasma fire and creative curses as the lieutenant teetered between passing out and staying upright enough to contribute to the fight. By the time he regained full consciousness, the squad medic was looking at his face while the rest of the REC troopers reloaded their weapons with fresh energy cells. Yeah, that's gonna have to be fixed back on the ship. Sorry, LT. Patches, the trooper medic, apologized as she put her med kit away. Did we at least get the varmint? Watson asked with a groan. Patches smiled and jerked her head towards a very brown ooze monster that smelled of cooked beef. The aggressive blob was unresponsive as a few REC troopers cautiously poked it with pieces of pipe or the barrels of their plasma guns. I am never looking at pot roast the same way ever again, Watson grumbled and turned to Scanner. Are you still detecting a life sign, or was that the life sign right there? Okay, does Scanner still detect a life sign? I give it a 50-50 and 57. Guess that creature was the biosignature detected earlier. The squad spotter looked at his equipment, then shook his head. Watson sighed and motioned for the squad to move out and search more of the colony. There had to be a place where they could access the colony's data server and extract a black box so the eggheads could figure out how the Orions made that thing. Their search soon took them down to the colony medical lab. Here among the blood splatters on the floor and walls was a research computer and the signs of a battle with a now dead creature that did not go well for the colony's original inhabitants. The air stank with a metallic smell of blood as Jeremiah Watson looked over the 3 corpses in the room. 2 were on the ground. 1 was draped over the research console that Digit needed. The one on the console was a female raccoon anthropomorph, while the 2 on the ground were of 2 different species that Watson didn't recognize off the top of his head. The ancient forerunners mostly preferred Earth when harvesting DNA stock for their living plushies, but that didn't mean Earth was the only place that had sickeningly cute furry creatures to splice human DNA with. Watson stopped his train of thought right there. mulling over the insane lack of ethics of a species that no one had seen in centuries, wasn't going to get his squad back home. "All right, Digit, does this have what you need so we can get the black box and get the hell out of here?" Watson asked. "I'll make it work, sir," Digit replied. Okay, and now I'm making another gather information move to extract all the colony's data on a single portable memory unit that the squad can walk right back to their dropship with. I get a 7 on my action die after modifiers, and my challenge die are a 4 and a 10. A weak hit. I think there's only one way to handle that this close to the end. Still putting another 3 on the progress tracker. Digit started downloading everything that might be relevant to a portable memory core. Research notes, journals, correspondence. He took everything. Skimming files as he copied them into the core. He stopped at one particular image and felt a chill run down his spine. He then displayed the file on another wall monitor so Watson can see it. Lieutenant Watson looked at the image for a long moment, then back at Digit. "Yeah, Command is definitely going to want to see that." Okay, and now I roll to fulfill my vow. I roll my challenge dice and going to compare the results against the progress I made. And 9 beats both 6 and 7, a strong hit. The vow is fulfilled, and I mark a single tick on my quest legacy tracker. Watson nodded as he looked back at the image, a star map of the immediate sector with a marked location of several other colonies conducting illegal research. And Digit finished copying the colony's files. "Yep, Command is definitely going to want to see this. Might be someone else's problem, or it might be ours. Whatever it is, it's not today's problem, at least," he replied as the squad returned to the dropship and took off back to their ship. Just another day in the wreck, troopers. End of story. Okay, now for my thoughts on Starforged. In short, my verdict is best summarized as, it's good, but mechanically the game is great. Virtually everything is resolved with that one dice formula described in the beginning, and the character customization options cover most of the archetypes one would see in a space western like Firefly or a Star Wars series set on the fringes of civilization. Bounty hunters, lawmen, smugglers, space mystics. The game does them all and then some. While we didn't touch on it as much in this adventure, the book has a number of great charts for generating planets, settlements, non-player characters, star systems, and many other things. Ship creation is handled the same way characters are, with card-based modules equipped to a modular ship. And there are trackers of all kinds for making sure you stay on top of all the progress your character is making through their story. But a lot of the charts are written on the assumption that you are playing in one particular kind of science fiction. A hard-scrabbled future of gunslingers with laser pistols and saloons with robotic bartenders. And if that's a subgenre of science fiction you enjoy, then Starforge is going to provide you with many, many hours of enjoyment once you master its fairly easy learning curve. But if you want to play in other subgenres, you might have to put in a little more effort depending on the genre and how far you want to go from the original baseline. Cyberpunk worlds similar to Blade Runner or sci-fi horror like Aliens would probably work as is. A setting like Star Trek, the Orville, or my Orion Commonwealth setting requires a bit more effort. It's still a lot less work than you might have with other science fiction tabletop RPGs, but still something to be mindful of. Overall, it's a good game, but one I don't see myself returning to that often, or at least not without some further tinkering to open it up to settings that feature hope and abundance instead of an abundance of scarcity and pain. We'll see what comes out of that tinkering, or if I go for another system instead. Until then, see you next time.